Hey everybody, Chris here. As we end the week, I'm looking at a V-shaped recovery going forward. I'll show you what that looks like in this video. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit that little notification bell too. You'll be notified when my videos come out as well as when I do live streams. I'll be live on Friday afternoon. We'll be summing up the week, looking forward to the weekend. And will this V-shaped recovery show a green day finally on Friday, as we're in the red right now? We're making this recording before the stock market opens, but we're already seeing a bit of a rebound on crypto and gold and silver after a big pullback. We'll show you all that with the news and the charts. Here we go. And we start here. We're going to look at the silver chart first, as silver did break up above $120 here on Thursday, and then has dropped over 20%, dropped below $100. That was the dip, and now we're starting to see the beginning of a V-shaped recovery. We go to the 4-hour chart and you see how silver over the past couple weeks has been grinding upwards. Precious metals is where the trading has been, and then this 20% pullback. That is where we start with silver. We take a look at gold, and we are going to see something very similar with gold. Gold comes up to 5,600 and then has a pullback. Let's see how big that pullback was in terms of a percentage. And that was about 11.5% on gold. Of course, that's huge because there's trillions and trillions of dollars in market cap in silver and gold. So that's big. Now, we take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been pulling back and has been this continual pullback. Again, this is as I had predicted at the end of 2025. I had predicted there would be a relief rally, and then we would have a pullback, and I was guessing the pullback was going to be about $82,000, $83,000. We had that. I thought it would take a little bit longer, but this was a sharp pullback we had here this last few days, and it met my target. So is this the beginning of this V-shaped recovery as well for Bitcoin? I will show you why in just a second. We take a look at Dogecoin at 11.5 cents. Following Bitcoin, a long way to go to get back up to these boxes that I've been tracking Dogecoin at different levels. So we will wait and see on that. And before we get to the pre-market of stocks, we can see that the stock market has been different. We are still near all-time highs for the S&P 500. Over $7,000. There was a dip yesterday down to about 6,900. And then I have my support resistance line here for the S&P 500. We look at NASDAQ, very similar, still very close to all-time highs, as well as the Dow Jones, of which I was predicting the Dow Jones would go even higher. So that is where we begin with the charts and the overall current status of gold and silver, cryptocurrencies, and stocks. Of course, a little bit earlier, we had Ted Pillow saying, everything is crashing today. And we looked at this of all of these different precious metals, including copper dropping down, Bitcoin, ETH. We had S&P 500, the Russell even. So all of the markets were sort of following each other overnight. Everything was dropping down. We have the latest on pre-market on futures, and we saw the beginning of each of these coming down overnight, but now they're starting to bounce. And we may see when the stock market opens, the stock market may actually be in the green. And we'll talk about Kevin Warsh here in just a second, because I think this is the news that is causing the markets to begin to bounce back up. President Trump just announced pro-Bitcoin Warsh for Fed chair. Bitcoin is about to go parabolic. Of course, this is Vivek Sen, and of course, he over-exaggerates everything. So this is not a parabolic move, but it gets one of these other areas of uncertainty out of the way. Who's going to be the next Fed chair? Now, he's not starting tomorrow. Right? He's not starting today. This pick is for May. Jerome Powell is not being fired, right? He's not resigning. As I've said many times, right? his term is up at the end of April. So Kevin would start in May, after Jerome Powell's term is up. Jerome Powell is still going to be on the Board of Governors, we think, within the Fed, and will still be one of those voting for rate cuts. It's not like this guy, Kevin Warsh, is going to be able just to say, let's cut rates, right? There's a Board of Governors who vote on these things. But having him as a leader, will that be good? I think this is a short-term bounce, but longer. We may see some pain through the summer because getting the rates down, which is what President Trump wants, is going to be a challenge. We're going to see these FOMC meetings, 2 more under Powell in March and April, and then Kevin Warsh's first will be June. That may be tough. He's pro-dollar, but he's also pro-Bitcoin. So kind of interesting how he is going to lead the Fed going on. But that's for a while right now. Right now, we want to talk about today. Both gold and silver had pulled back from all-time highs. I posted this morning. Gold down to $5,000, silver down to $100. So those are support. That's support for each. That we'll be looking at $5,000 for gold, $100 for silver, and we'll see how these react. And we'll get this on the Friday afternoon live stream, so make sure that you're subscribed and you got your notifications on so you know when I go live. You can ask questions as well, even about any miscellaneous stocks, or look at other cryptocurrencies and all of that during the live streams. But one thing about silver now, somebody had a long leveraged trade on silver to continue going up, and he got liquidated. $11 million in a silver long position. So are we starting to see the manipulation of gold and silver, which I had previously said shouldn't be able to happen because they're so big, trillions of dollars, right, in market cap. But nope, silver's trading like a meme coin, and $11 million long position got liquidated. Gold pulling back from the 5,000, is actually 5,600 high, as people wondering if the top is in. History rhymes. CoinMarketCap research shows that after gold's 2011 peak, other rotational assets outperformed for years. A reminder that cycles and opportunity cost matter. So gold, crowded, overheated narrative. Bitcoin, oversold, sentiment washed out. Is this finally going to be this rotation from the precious metals, right? Everybody taking their profits now. And is it going to flow into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies? Is it all going to flow into stocks instead because these investors know these 4-year cycles and Bitcoin is still going to be suppressed for a while? We'll be watching that going forward. Trader Allen's talking about a V-shaped rebound. He looks back to the tariff pullback down at the bottom in April 2025, and we had this V-shaped rebound. Is this setting up in a very similar pattern right now for Bitcoin? It certainly looks like it. Very similar pattern, but it's a different economic time now. We were still back in 2025 here thinking about the 4-year cycles for cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin did respond, going up to 126,200 in October. New all-time high before the October 10th flash crash and everything falling back down. So now, will we see a recovery here? Will this be enough good news to get that recovery happening? We look at the fear and greed, and before Trump this morning announced Kevin Warsh as the new Fed chair, we were down at 16 in extreme fear for the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index. 16 is low. It can go lower. We look at this red box over time, and we see at 10, that was the bottom of the tariff drop, was at 10. We're not at a 10. We're at a 16 now. There's still room in the fear and greed, in fear, to go down even more. But we look further back to below 10, and what do we see? 2022, bear market. 2018, bear market into 2019. So there's still room for the crypto fear to go even lower, and we're not there yet. So that is a challenge we may have. But then if we've seen these bounces before of fear and greed, and this could be another one of those V-shaped bounces as well. Dan Crypto says, look, Bitcoin broke below main support region. November low, still untouched. We haven't gotten down to that level yet, which was 80,000. We're still above that. The best the bulls can hope for here is that price stalls here, showing no strong follow-through on the breakdown. And that V-shaped recovery certainly helps that. A deviation back up could then be a trigger for a reversal, and that's what we're going to watch for. Is there a reversal that's going to come? Are we going to bounce on a V-shaped recovery, and then something else is going to come along, some upheaval that's going to cause the drop even lower? That's what we would see in a true bear market, so we'll be watching for that. We have the ETFs selling because the sentiment is so low, the fear is there. We have on the BlackRock IBIT Bitcoin ETF over $800 million worth of Bitcoin was sold. Now that wasn't BlackRock just selling Bitcoin. No, it was all the investors who have IBIT, right? A lot of them are selling. And so BlackRock has to sell Bitcoin because they have to have a one-to-one relationship. Fourth largest outflow since the launch 2 years ago of the Bitcoin IBIT ETF. That's huge. That is huge. So Glassnode also notes that as Bitcoin moves lower, there are a wave of long liquidations, kicked in, amplified, big liquidations happening on these pullbacks because traders are betting that the bounce is each one of these levels. There's a bounce. And now we're going to have another bounce, which is going to be more new leverage long trades coming in, which could be a challenge for the market makers who are hunting those big leveraged longs. And what we ended up over the past 24 hours is $1.7 billion. Again, we're over $1 billion again in 24 hours in liquidations, and it's almost all on the longs, including the silver. $100 million on this silver right here. That tracking on CoinGlass. So that's a big challenge. We get a relief rally, we take out some of the new shorts, and then we'll see next week if they're going to be hunting some of the new longs. Glassnode also points out that the net transfer volume for miners, the miners have been selling. We talk about miners both for Bitcoin and for Dogecoin, that if the miners start selling, those are the things we need to watch out for as we see price coming down as miners sell. You know, they need to pay their bills and such, but they also have a frequency of when they sell and take profits as well, because the miners do that, and we've had that. The second half of January, big selling of miners of Bitcoin, and I imagine Doge has been the same. So about ETH, right? ETH had this big head and shoulder, again, not a straight line, but an upward sloping line. Okay, we get that. But is this the next move after the head and shoulders? Is there going to be a big pullback in ETH? I think we're just bouncing back up again. We have a V-shape recovery happening, and we'll see how long-term that is. And as we turn to Dogecoin, we have Dogecoin pulled back, looking at the 4-year cycles, 2017, 2021. This is what we had for this cycle. This was the Dogecoin move. It front-ran Bitcoin back to the end of 2024. That was the high, 48 cents. And now we're fading back down, similar to 2022. However, has not fallen below the Gaussian channel. Now, we could continue to do that like we did in 2022, and that's still what I'm predicting for the summer. For now, I think we're going to have a little V-shaped recovery and then pull back down, and we'll see whether we stay above that Gaussian channel line. Another view of this is in these ascending broadening wedges that we've had. Get back to 2016, back to 2020, but now we're in 2026, which is an interesting time because it's right after the bull market, and now we have the reverse. But when you look back to 2024, before we had the big run up to 48 cents, we kind of have this pattern here. Now, this could always pull back lower. We'll be watching for that. But for now, let's enjoy a little bit of a V-shaped recovery and see if that follows through. Let's come into the short term on the chart. Again, we'll be following up with all of these charts in my next live stream on Friday afternoon. Be sure to join in. Let me know what you think. Dogecoin, Bitcoin, are we going to see this V-shaped recovery? Give the video a like. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I appreciate the support. We'll see you next time.